the importance of why we need to pay attention to why Kristi Noem and other people who have been appointed to this administration by this idiot president. We have to expose them for the frauds that they are and for how dumb they are. And I know other people have covered this today, I'm sure, plenty, but, you know, it would be remiss if we did not discuss this little video.
Secretary Noem, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff recently said that the Trump administration is actively looking at suspending habeas corpus.
Just as a reminder, I think I'm probably the first person to predict that they were going to do exactly that once the Supreme Court ruled against them, saying that everybody is supposed to be able to get the ability to file a writ of habeas corpus to, you know, say and argue whether or not they should actually be held in prison and or deported. So, again, that was 9-0. Remember that.
Last week you were asked about this, and I want to clarify your position because it's obviously really important to get this right. So, Secretary Noem, what is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be.
No, presidents shouldn't have rights as their authority. Presidents should have power. People have rights. So as an individual, a president, as a citizen, would have rights like anybody else. But as a elected official, the ability for him to do anything would be a power. But she is also wrong about what habeas corpus is.
Right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to.
Let me stop you, ma'am. Habeas corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
President Lincoln used it.
Yeah, President Lincoln eliminated the writ of habeas corpus during the insurrection of the Civil War, but that's not what that is.
Excuse me. Habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people. If not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason. Habeas corpus is the foundational right that separates free societies like America from police states like North Korea. As a senator from the Live Free or Die state, this matters a lot to me and my constituents and to all Americans. So, Secretary Noem, do you support the core protection that habeas corpus provides, that the government must provide a public reason in order to detain and imprison someone?
Yeah, I support habeas corpus. I also recognize that the President of the United States has the authority under the Constitution to decide if it should be suspended or not.
It has never
Let us be clear, though, that this president.
It has never been done without approval of Congress. Even Abraham Lincoln got retroactive approval from Congress. So I have been asking executive branch nominees a simple question over the past few months. If the president orders them to break the law, I've been asking, will you follow the law or follow the order? I want to ask you a more specific question here. If the president tries to suspend habeas corpus and a federal court reverses the president's order, will you comply with the court order and uphold habeas corpus, or will you follow the president's directive?
We are following all federal court orders and are.
No, you're not. Stop lying. Oh, my God. I mean, how do you tell that a Trump administration employee or appointee is lying? Their lips are moving. But no, you shipped people out already before, not even giving them their ability to file a writ of habeas corpus, and you're not trying to get them back. And you know, the judge literally said, you may not do this, and they did it anyway. So F off, you gaslighting a-hole.
Complying with that, as is the president, and every decision that I make as well.
That is obviously not true for anybody who reads the news. There are federal court orders right now, including returning somebody who was deported mistakenly. But to be.
I mean, I grant Kristi Noem this. I mean, I've been critical of the media a lot recently as well, but more so because they abdicated their responsibility to inform the people of the danger that your boss, would have if elected back to the office of the presidency. So, but that's why I am critical of the media. Of course, Kristi Noem is critical of the media because when they actually tell the truth about Donald Trump, she doesn't like that.
Be clear. This is about a fundamental legal right that ensures that we live in a free society instead of a police state that would have a sham legal system like Russia or North Korea. So I'm glad that you have now committed to following court orders. I'm glad you believe in the basic freedom for Americans.
If you believe that that's just a commitment by her to follow court orders, then I got a bridge in somewhere to sell you. I don't know. On Lake Pontchartrain Bridge. It's a long one.
If ordered to do so by a court. And again, I want just to make clear that it is critically important that even if the president tries to suspend the right of people to know why they've been detained or imprisoned, if a federal court reverses that order, that you will follow that order. And I hope all the members of the administration will, because it's obviously critical that some of the people, for instance, who've been deported by mistake, who didn't get due process, be returned in compliance with court orders.
I yield back my time. So, or I reclaim my time, I should say. I will reclaim my time to be able to, talk about other stuff with this horrible administration. So why is this important? Not just Garcia. Not just Garcia when it comes to individuals who were deported by mistake. I mean, it's willful actions, and those willful actions, didn't follow the law. So I really don't want to call it a mistake, even though they say that it was and admit that it was. It's willful ignorance. It's purposefully not following the rules that we are supposed to follow in this country, and then people getting caught up. It's malfeasance of office. It's not a mistake. They're using the wrong M word. But here's another reason why this is important. 50 plus Venezuelans, according to Cato Institute, imprisoned in El Salvador, came to U.S. legally and never violated immigration law. Shortly after, the U.S. government illegally and unconstitutionally transported about 240 Venezuelans to be imprisoned in El Salvador's horrific terrorism prison. On March 15th, CBS News published their names, and another investigation found that 75% of the men on that list had no criminal record either here or abroad. And what they're saying is less attention has been paid to this other fact that dozens of these men never violated immigration law either. Why the review is needed, the U.S. government not only denied these men due process, it also generally failed to provide their families, their attorneys, or the public any information about what it alleges these men did to deserve incarceration in El Salvador and deportation for that. In fact, it has never been published in a comprehensive list of individuals that it has sent to El Salvador, and it has refused to verify the CBS News list. Journalists have already discovered that the list obtained by CBS News was incomplete. Moreover, in most cases, the men never knew the evidence against them or that they were being removed to El Salvador. Finally, U.S. and Salvadorian governments won't allow the men to talk to anyone, so there's no way to interview them directly. Given the total lack of transparency by the federal government, we have compiled what the families of the men themselves are reporting about their entries and what likely triggered incarceration in El Salvador. No information regarding one in three of these men could be found online. Maybe no one in their families knows they are missing, or maybe they are too afraid to speak up. For the 48% of the 174 who we have some information, we have no information about their method of crossing into the United States. For many, only information is Facebook or Instagram posts about their mothers pleading for information about their children. About 100 relatives also signed a letter to the Salvadorian president, but it contains no specific information. The government calls them all illegal aliens, but of the 90 cases where the method of crossing is known, 50 report that they have come legally to the United States with advanced U.S. government position at a border crossing point. A Reuters survey of 50 men also placed the proportion of those who entered legally at about half. So this is why this is important. You have somebody who's in charge of that department who is, responsible in making sure that these things are happening correctly and under the law, which we all know they don't care about because this is a criminal administration. But we now know that did they not just take people who were, like Garcia, who was specifically not allowed to be deported, but they because they didn't give the people the due process, many people got deported who shouldn't have been in the first place. And that's why we need due process. And that's why everybody should be able to file a writ of habeas corpus. It's not give everybody a whole ass trial before you can do it, but you at least need to have a hearing to determine whether or not the individual is being rightly deported or not. If this individual is a citizen or a legal resident or a legal, traveler, whatever documentation they might have that approves their being here, so that they can say, okay, you can't be deported. But of course, if the courts say that, then what? Is this administration going to follow through? I fully believe that this administration feels that it doesn't have to follow any court order, especially because J.D. Vance said that Justice Roberts is wrong, that the job of the Supreme Court, the judicial branch, is to be a check on the power of the presidency, of the executive branch. J.D. Vance doesn't think that. So anybody else in the administration going to think that, or going to think that the Supreme Court should be a check on their power? No. They believe in the individual unitary power of the presidency that basically says his power is basically unlimited, which basically makes him a king, which is the reason why we supposedly fought a war of revolution back in 1776. But these people don't care about that, I guess, neither. So what do you think? Do you still think that this administration is not following the law? Do you think that they're start that over? What do you think? Do you think that this administration is still following the law, or do you think they're brazenly not following the law and should be held accountable for their criminal actions? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, to subscribe to the channel. And unless you're a Nazi, have a good day.